We might be experiencing a sense of losses, and this could be in the form of physical death, but I feel like many people are having these mini spiritual awakenings in order for them to be able to use grief as an ability to live more. Spirit had told me there are going to be cycles breaking towards December where there's going to be another exodus of souls leaving, but we're meant to use that as a sacred portal for us to be able to shed the old. Now is the time, because going into 2025, it's like this energy of being scattered is going to be trying to be pulling us in so many different directions, but it's that grace that's needed to be in that flow. And knowing that there will be a death and rebirth cycle, but that is actually going to serve you in terms of your power being revealed.
Gaia Chinniah, welcome on Just Tap In. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
I'm actually excited, Emilio, one, to be here with you and have this opportunity to share what I have learnt directly from Spirit and all the teachers that are my students that come to me from all over the world, is how I have educated myself on my spiritual journey. But what is happening in my life that I'm most excited about is the opportunities that are arising from the chaos that we're seeing around the world. And I know that those of us who are on this journey, your viewers, your listeners, the teachers that you have on, we are all looking at how to transform that chaos into our power. And for me, I can see that in my own life, where it's actually working in synchronicity now for the chaos to be leveraged into power rather than into pain. And I just feel that this is an opportunity for us all. But I look at it as an exciting opportunity because we're starting to move past needing to suffer and into that space of flow. And that's an empowerment, really. And I'm seeing that in my own life, but I'm also seeing that in the lives of those coming to me who are wanting to transform pain into power.
You've also said that humanity is beginning to make a great shift where we're beginning to see the world more through our soul perspective rather than the density of the human vessel. What does that shift begin to start looking like? You briefly mentioned going from pain into power, but when someone starts to see the world through their soul, as you did at 33, what does the world start looking like for them?
Through my own experience, I'm 41 now and I turned 42 this year. And prior to 33, Emilio, I was living a life that I was conditioned to live. In my mind, I had grown up in a Sri Lankan family that were doing the best that they could to facilitate a child that would be a successful adult in the world. And success was very much tied into who you are in society, the status that you had, the material wealth that you could show. But I was lucky enough to have come from a Hindu family, so there was always the spiritual aspect of things. But when I had my awakening at 33, which I'd prophesized for myself, but I just didn't realize it would be on the scale of what it has become. Looking at life through a soul perspective enabled me to actually see myself beyond the physical and seeing the light that encompasses the actual vessel that comes into the body. I see, as part of my gift, the light entering a body when a woman is going to conceive, And I also see the light exiting when someone is going to pass or if a woman is going to miscarry. When you see that happening, there is, and I've seen people pass away, like physically being there watching the body shut down. I've seen in my own family the body starting to deteriorate and the essence of the soul remaining, and that is all that remains because the physical body cannot be used anymore for whatever reason. Looking through the soul perspective allows us to be able to see that nothing is good or bad. Everything is an experience and a lesson. It shows us that we're so much more than everything that we've been conditioned to be. And with my gift, because the way that my guides had initiated me into this gift, you know, I time travel, Emilio. I time travel into different realms where there are different lifetimes of an individual still existing. And when you see all that, you realize that it's not just Gaia and Emilio here together. There are different versions of us in different realms that are impacting and affecting how we live. And through the soul perspective, we start to investigate and understand those different aspects of us. But from the human perspective, we only just see what is in front of us rather than beyond that. And I think this shift that is happening, and I can see that through the numbers of people that are approaching what I do and wanting to seek and find out what is happening for them in these different dimensions. People are naturally investigating this now because they're done. They're done with the suffering. They're done with the innate fight or flight mode that has been inside of us for so long. They're done with feeling envy and jealousy, which is so ingrained in people for everyone to start being competitive with each other. And I just feel like through the soul perspective, we're starting to move beyond that into that space of unity and understanding the different aspects of all of us and how we can integrate all of that to become more, to serve more, to give more, but also to receive directly from source. I think that the human perspective limits us to information from another human, which is wonderful. We all have a lot to share. But as I tell my clients, Gaia knows nothing. Gaia only just learns from what she is shown through the divine, because that's the pure form of information. That's the pure source of the frequencies that are coming in to enable us to heal on this journey as well as to experience and learn. And prior to 33, that wasn't even me, Emilio. That was, when I look back at that person, she was trying so hard to prove her worth and to perform to be loved, when we're all just naturally that at the core. And only the soul perspective, and not just intellectualizing the soul perspective, it is really feeling it in your being. Like, you know, you did a beautiful prayer and meditation for us before we started this. And it's so true, because Spirit has shown me that we need to be seeing from our heart, that heart and the third eye connection, not our seeing eyes. I had another awakening at this age. I knew that I would. Years ago, they told me 33 and 41 would be awakenings. And I know it's not just for me. It's because Spirit sends me people. My awakenings are for other people. The gift is for other people, not so much for me. I just learn along the way. And during that awakening, they literally opened up an eye in my heart space. And then they drew the frequency like a synapsis of light to my third eye. And I literally, you know, I never cancel clients ever, no matter what is going on in my life. I will continue. I can park my things and move on. But during this awakening, it was during the equinox. I was having heart palpitations, and I was having almost like I was having a heart attack, because the heart was breaking for the light to get in and link that synapsis to the third eye to be able to see from that place. And that is the place where we're able to see beyond what we're told we are and what we feel like we have to do. And I just think that everyone that is drawn to you or drawn to me or any platform or teacher that is coming from source, they will know that the soul perspective is being given to them for them to be able to continue their healing work with whoever is drawn to them. And that's what I'm seeing a lot. Through the soul perspective, there are a number of people stepping forward who want to embrace their healing gifts. And that's what you're doing. Like you said, this is beyond interviews now. These are transmissions. They're transmissions for everyone that is watching us, everyone that can feel our frequencies, everyone that can feel our codes. And only the soul perspective can recognize that, Emilio.
Yeah, it's almost a shamanic ceremony when we get into these transmissions, as you said. And it's beautiful how you mentioned that your heart had to break in order for the light to get in. And it almost seems almost painful, but at the same time, it was activating a new sensory gift in your life. And that happened just a year ago. But I wanted to go back into the first one of these activations where, you were living your corporate life and all of a sudden you knew something was going to happen at 33, but you couldn't have dimensionalized what to the extent of that. So what was that first activation like? And, from when we talk about gifts, what were those that started to come online for you that you started sharing now with people as you do in your work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love reflecting on this because as I grow and mature and my knowledge increases through the work with spirit, the story keeps making more sense to me, because, I keep changing and upgrading. I went to university, I got a master's degree. I was really on this trajectory of becoming someone that people would recognize, but it was coming from purely ego and insecurity, Emilio. It was coming from this place of ancestral trauma where, as a migrant family from, I've never been to Sri Lanka, even though I am Sri Lankan by ethnicity, but Sri Lanka to Malaysia, where I was born, and then Malaysia to New Zealand when I was 4 years old in New Zealand, where I am speaking from now. It's ingrained inside of us to have to prove that we belong with everybody else, that we are successful or even more successful, that my skin color was going to be a factor that's going to hold me back rather than be something that was going to be an asset for me. And prior to 33, I was just, doing my best to prove myself. And then when I'd finished university and started working, I did have a real sense of helping humanity. Like I worked for Greenpeace for a number of years and I traveled from New Zealand to Europe and was setting up fundraising programs. And I was doing this at a really young age. So I still really wasn't sure what I was meant to be doing with my life, but I knew that I had to help the environment. I had to help humanity in some way. And through that, I discovered, I was managing a lot of people from a very young age. Like I know that you are 26 and at that age, even younger, I was managing big teams of people that were much more mature in age than me. And my managers would always say to me, Gaia, you have this amazing ability to bring out the best in people. And I was like, okay, well, that's great. So I followed that through. And then at the age of about 28, I started to say to the just close friends and to my partner, I'd say, something amazing is going to happen to me when I turn 33. Now, I saw my first medium when I was 18, Emilio, and it's actually my friend who was 40 passed away last year in her sleep. And, she communicates with me now too. And she was the one that took me to see my first medium. And this medium, when I went to see her, I actually still know her all these years later. We became good friends. I remember her saying to me, you carry Christ consciousness. One day that you're going to be very internationally well known. People are going to be finding you. And at that time, Emilio, all of that just went in one ear and came out the other, because my ego was only focused on, who am I going to marry? How many children am I going to have? What's my education going to be? All of those things. And then I'd forgotten about what she had said over the years, because I saw her a number of times, and then I got on with my life. And when I was having this, prophesizing my future, I would say something amazing is going to happen to me at 33. So I live in New Zealand, where there are incredible Indigenous Maori that live here. And every Maori person, whether they think they're spiritual or not, when I see a Maori person as a client, even if they're physically, the features are not necessarily traditional, I know immediately that person's got the bloodline of some sort of Indigenous culture, because my whole room will fill up with warriors and princesses and ancestors. And it was through a Maori healer, because teachers, and this is something for all of your listeners and viewers to know, you don't need to go looking for your teachers. I've walked past people and spirit will say to me, you need to talk to that person, and then that person will share something with me, or that's how I've met everybody in my life. I've never gone looking for them. Like my friend who took me to see this medium, she's like, come on, we're going to go and see this psychic. And I'm like, at 18 years old going. And so when I went to see this Maori healer, who was actually referred to me by my beauty therapist at the time, she said to me, I've met this woman. I need you to go and see her. I think there's just something about you. And this is before I knew I had any spiritual gifts as such. And I went to see her, and I'd go and receive incredible traditional Maori healing, which is a beautiful, gentle. There's two ways. There's a massage type physical healing that is very deep, but this particular Maori healer works very gently. She's very, very powerful. And then just prior to 33, I was traveling overseas a lot, because I had a distribution company that I'd set up with organic products. And I came home to see her, and I just turned 33, and nothing specific happened. And this is something important for those who are undergoing awakenings at the moment, which are a lot of people. I didn't just wake up at 33 and think, oh, I'm different. It took a while. It took a while for the integration to happen. And this is what we all have to remember if we're receiving healing directly from source, or we're going to a practitioner. I went to see her after I turned 33, and I got on the massage table, and she was doing her thing, and she looked at me and she said, there's something's changed about you. And I said, yeah, I can feel it. I've just turned 33 a few months ago. And then she said to me, Gaia, I wanted to tell you this earlier, but there are symbols on your body, and they're on your body. And she said, look, only 1% of the population has these symbols. I only know one other lady in New Zealand who has them, and she keeps them hidden. Another Maori lady that was living somewhere else. And I said, why hidden? And she said, because you are naturally a healing symbol. So at the time, I still didn't really understand that. I said, okay. And then I left. And she said, next time you come and see me, I want you to work on me. So I left Emilio. I left and carried on with my life. Again, just took on what she said, but my ego never got away with it from that perspective. I just allowed that to integrate and cascade through my body. Then I went to see her a few months later, and she got on the table. And this is where I really figured out what the gifts were. She got on her table fully clothed, face up. She put her puppy on top of her, and she looked at me and she said, do what you know how to do. And at the time, Emilio, I had no idea what was going on, but now I know.
She was your healer, and now she wanted you to heal her.
Correct. And she said, do what you know how to do. And I was thinking, what does that mean? And so I stood by the side of her, just by her head, and I closed my eyes and I felt something enter, but I didn't know what it was. And I opened my eyes and I could see all the cells in her body. I could smell disease on her body that I didn't know she had, because I would go and we'd be silent because she's just doing her thing when I was going as a client. And she would say some things to me that I needed to know. And I felt very out of control, because Gaia likes to think she's in control, being a very disciplined person. And I started to be able to see and smell, and I was being pulled up into different dimensions to be able to tell her what lifetimes she's led. And I was able to tell her future things. And it was so interesting because I was saying things to her like, okay, so when's your 10-year anniversary? Because I'm seeing you walking through the woods with your wedding dress on. And she said, well, interestingly, it's on Friday. And that's how my husband and I are renewing our vows. We're renewing our vows in the woods. And she's a plant medicine healer. So it all made sense to her, which I didn't really know her for that long at this time. And I just started crying, Emilio, because I was really not frightened from fear, but more shaken by awe. Because I was like, why am I seeing this? What does this mean? Am I having some sort of psychotic episode? And she looked at me and she said, I knew you knew what to do. So she helped me remember. And that is my gift now, is to help others remember. And so when I went home that day, I rang my partner. I said, you need to come home now. Something's wrong with me, And he came home. It was 3:00 in the afternoon. He's like, what's wrong? And I was standing in the living room crying and crying and crying. And I told him the experience that I had, and he was very calm about it. And he said to me, look, I'm actually not surprised with you. And I think this is the thing that what I'm noticing in people is what I saw in myself. I really underestimated myself, Emilio, and I think a lot of people do underestimate the amount of power that they have because they're still staying in that victim energy that I was in of, I need to perform to be loved and I need to prove my worth. But when we really, truly embrace who we are, the miracles that unfold, my life is amazing with the miracles that unfold every day. And then, Emilio, from there, the gift grows every year. Like I said to you before, it changes because it's
upgraded.
It's upgraded. It's like you get initiated because from that experience with the Māori healer, and I swear to you, Emilio, I never said anything to anybody. People literally just started to come. And I don't know what happened. It's like she activated something inside me, and then Spirit was like drawing people to me. And people just started to come. And then I realized that when I time travel, I was seeing blueprints of who people were and able to explain to them why you are the way that you are. This is what you've done. But from when I started to what the gift is now, it became more of a information giving session to now it's a transmutation. So when I travel, Spirit's giving me examples that are very on point for the client right now. So for example, I had this client, one of my first clients, which I'll never forget. Usually I forget them really easily, but there are some stories that are just so awe-inspiring and miraculous that it really just sticks with me. This is one of the biggest lessons I had when I first started doing this work. Spirit had sent me a client, and when a client comes to see me, Emilio, I don't allow anybody to speak because I like to just pick up intuitively beyond the ego, beyond the personality. Who are you from a soul perspective? And this lady got on my table, and I went into the trance space that I go into when I work, and I traveled. I traveled to India, and I think it was like the 800s or something, 800 BCE or something. It was something really old. And bear in mind, this woman hasn't spoken or told me anything. And I could hear chanting, and I could see animals being sacrificed. And I was thinking, what's going on? So I asked the spirit guides, I said, what are you asking me to see here for this woman? And what was happening was there was a black magic curse being put on this woman. And now I didn't know that all of this was real. I'd heard about it. I didn't know all of this was real until I started seeing these things for myself. A black magic curse was being put on this client in this other realm, and it was being done from her husband. Her husband's family, so her in-laws, were putting a black magic curse on her. So I had to fast forward and rewind initially before I fast forwarded. Why is this happening? And out of my mouth came, Emilio, in this lifetime, your husband was sexually abusing your children. And I said, you took your children and you fled by boat to another state in India. And for taking the children away, because his family had affluence and money and status, they were of a better caste. They started to put a curse on her so that she would get a blood disease and die from that blood disease. So I'm saying all this while I'm experiencing this in another lifetime. She looks at me and she starts bawling her eyes out, crying and crying and crying. I said, okay, why are you reacting this way? The reason why I came to find you, Gaia, why I was led to you, my husband is sexually abusing our children in this lifetime. And she said, I do have a blood disease in this lifetime also. So what that was telling me is that it may have been a past life, but it actually wasn't. It was merging to the current life because now it had to be dealt with. So I worked with her, I can't remember for how long, maybe it was a year or so, but it went through legal proceedings. He doesn't have any contact with the children, and she is healing from her blood disease. So there was this amazing awakening and epiphany at that time that we had to look at her from a soul perspective in order for us to heal her children, and this trauma that has been traveling from lifetimes and life. We went to the source of that trauma. And so with the gifts that I started to develop was to be able to see things not on this level, but where is it coming from? Because a lot of people stop at trauma from what's happened in this lifetime. And that's something that we can do in our own time. Like, what has happened historically with us and where could this go? And I encourage people to look at that. But there is more beyond that. So when the gifts started to kick in, Emilio, it was like I was seeing different versions of people. And then now at this stage, and who knows how this is going to evolve and change as I mature and evolve, I realized that through me being a healing symbol, I can go out and I can pull that memory out and I can actually rewrite that history for that client in order to change their future. But they just need to step into their power to be able to do that. So the gift changes. It goes from, seeing and passing on wisdom to really having that client's input. Like, are you ready now to rewrite this history? Because the rest of it's on you. I can only spend this amount of time with you and transmute and release it, but you need to actually step into that power again. So that's how it all started. Like, Spirit gave me so many lessons by sending me a huge number of people from different walks of life, everything from medical professionals to truck drivers to all sorts of people. And that's how I started to learn. And so for the healers out there, and I'm getting a number of them approaching me, how do I do what you do? You've got to do what you do. Nobody taught me what I do. I learned directly from Spirit. All that happened for me was someone helped me remember. And that is what a true good healer will do for you. They will give you that empowered energy to be able to step into your gifts yourself.
I'm feeling into that we all come into this life with innate gifts, and those innate gifts in a way were gifts that were worked on or mastered in other lifetimes, parallel lifetimes as well, that is then being transferred onto this life that we can begin to start working on. I know you mentioned that a lot of people would start to go up to you and tell you that you carried the Christ consciousness. 33 is a beautiful number closely related with Jesus. And I know you've said in the past that you did remember many lifetimes where you walked the earth alongside Jesus and learning as well from him. So it doesn't surprise me that those healer gifts are still innately with you because maybe you've worked on them in the past. What was it like to remember or tune into those other lifetimes where you were a healer and you were walking with these masters on earth and learning from them as well?
It sounds so bizarre talking about this, but I know that your audience will understand. And, the gift that I have, and I believe everyone's gifts, it's for other people. We're here to serve, right? We're here to serve humanity. When it comes to ourselves, and I can speak for myself, you have your knowings and you're able to see, but I never force anything. And I think this is a very important thing for all the healers that are stepping into their power, is that you don't need to force it, because if you hand over and ask to be used and you ask to be serving people, it will naturally, if it's meant and destined for you, it will naturally just start to grow. Because like I said, this whole journey, I haven't done anything. I just literally just handed over and stopped intellectualizing everything and just was used. And, you know, being in a Hindu family, I come from a very open family. We would be sitting in church at Christmas time with our Christian friends. We would be at Ramadan, because it's Malaysia. Malaysia is full of different cultures where my parents still live there, and they moved back there when I was about 17, 16. And it was very open. So I'd never really thought about Jesus. And so when Christ consciousness was told to me by many mediums, not just the one that I'd seen at 18 for a few years, I didn't really understand what that meant. And then someone did my numerology number and said, oh my, you're a 33. Your numerology is 33 too. And so when I had the awakening at 33, I actually had a client at my place, and she was a very normal person. And I said to her, I can't even remember her name right now, I just remember the story. I said, Jesus is standing here at our feet. She's like, I know. She said, I can see him too. And she's like, this is amazing. She said, because I can't see anything, she said to me. And so
It was
that's
a
when
shared vision that you had.
It was a shared vision. And that's what I love about the work, is that sometimes it is shared. It's not just me seeing. I'm just the person that amplifies that person's natural abilities anyway. And so lifetimes that I've had that I have seen either through myself, because I don't ever ask to see my own, I just let them show me when they want to. And for me, that's the best way to be organically a healer, because you're not, I always say gifts are given. We don't demand a gift. I don't go, give me a gift. No, Emilio, you owe me something. I don't work like that. I'll be like, whatever you want me to do, whatever you want me to see, I will do that, as long as it's in the light of God, meaning that I'm working in the light. Because we do know that the flip side of gifts, people can utilize power for not good. And I know many situations where that has happened to different clients who have gone to see people that are not working in the light. And so the lifetimes that I've seen where I've worked with Christ consciousness or with Jesus and with him in different forms, is that I'm almost on a pilgrimage, bringing people on and healing them through frequency and just being around me. So I'll often tell my clients, people come to me thinking they're getting a reading, but what is actually happening through me is that the frequency and the symbols of my body, I actually share the same blood type as Jesus Christ, and only 1% of the population has that too. I only discovered that a few years ago. I didn't know that about me, as when I was lying in hospital for the first time ever. So I realized there was such a deep connection when they would pull me into these lifetimes to see myself. I was a red-headed male, and I'm actually seeing the vision now with short hair. And I would walk with him as he was healing people and be alongside him. And this is how I think when people ask, how do I bring clients on board? For me, it just happened organically, because I am not in charge of this. I'm not in charge of this at all. And when we surrender and we let go, we will be shown the path. So walking alongside these beings that have such wisdom and understanding has provided me with the insight to be able to grow each year into my gift. And something a few days ago happened to me, which has never happened before. And I thought the timing is very interesting, knowing that I'm coming online to speak to you. I'm fortunately I live by the ocean. And so beach walking is quite frequent for me. And this was on the 21st of July that this happened. And I'm walking and I look at a wall, just a wall, and it had vines on it. And through my third eye, the vines turned into a peacock feather. And they said to me, Krishna consciousness is with you. Now, Krishna, I know of Krishna because I'm Hindu, but I never have focused on one deity or anything because, as I said, grew up in a Hindu family with lots of rituals and ceremonies, but never really focused on one thing. Everything was one. And they said to me, Krishna consciousness is with you, and it's his birthday. And I was thinking, is it? Okay. Carried on my beach walk, went home, Googled it. Krishna was born 21st of July, 3000 and something BCE, I think. And I was thinking, okay, Krishna consciousness. Then Jesus came up again. I don't see him often. And it's not seeing him in the way that people think. It's not like I'm seeing a man standing there. It's the energy of it. Because, as human beings, and especially as mediums and healers, we see things the way that we know it. So we see the symbols the way we know it because we've all been learned in our lives. We have certain codes that we formulate to understand what we're being shown. And then I realized that this Krishna consciousness and Christ consciousness is so directly related to one another that it is all one. And I just feel like we're all being asked to remember who we were through lifetimes before, awakening what we know, to be able to step into this consciousness that is available to us. Because without that consciousness, I cannot do what I do. It is not me. It is what is given to me. It is what is given to you. You've created this platform, but all the people that are saying yes to your invitation, we're getting a bigger yes to come and speak to you. Because we know that you have the ability to amplify the message, to amplify the frequency. So the greats are still walking with us despite their physical being not here. The way I saw and felt Krishna and have been over this last while, I've never really considered him. I've known what he looks like, how he's depicted, but that energy is so strongly, and it's not just for me, it's to be passed on to you. It is to be passed on to those who are listening. And it's because all this chaos is happening. Chaos is happening in my own family life also at the moment. But when Krishna or Christ consciousness comes in, it's to let go. It's to surrender. It's to be cleansed by these experiences, to know that nothing is good or bad. Everything is just being. It's in the experience, it's in the learning, and it's in the trusting to hand it over. Hand it over to Krishna, hand it over to God, hand it over to whoever, whatever you believe. And I always tell my clients, you need to keep your faith. Because I think in the beginning, I was experiencing, just for my own lessons, people who were like, how do you do what you do? I have no rational explanation, but I'm completely taken over and guided. And so those experiences that I've had in lifetimes before, where I've walked with Jesus and had these experiences to support these greats, have enabled me to come into my gifts a lot more accelerated than what other people perhaps. But that's my job. It's also to help people come into their gifts and help others, because as one person, there's only so many we can see. We all have to play our part.
Yeah. Gaia, where else have you time traveled to the most often recently?
Egypt is a big one. So I've not physically been to Egypt, but I have worked in Egypt before. And what I love about it when we all start looking at the soul perspective is I do feel that eventually we probably are not going to need to travel anywhere, because all of us will be able to travel just through the portals that open up. Because when I work, Spirit opens up 2 portals for me. And I was feeling into this because Spirit was asking me to tell you, and is now, portals can be in the form of almost anything. Watching rain is a portal. Seeing a flame is a portal. The sun rising is a portal. The full moon is a portal. We can enter portals through nature or any time. For me, when I work, because I'm the sort of person, I set quite strong boundaries around my work because I also want the human experience. For me, it's very important to be grounded in my work. So when I'm done work, I will just carry on with my life, because I could stay up here all day, because this is an amazing space to be in. It's like, oh, I
You
feel
got the best of both worlds, Hannah Montana
it's amazing.
style.
Because up here, because the day, even if I'm upset about something and then I start working, it's like, oh, what am I upset about? Nothing's bad. Nothing's good. There's no suffering up here. I can see it all. So when that portal opens up and I start traveling, portal number two is through my crown chakra. There's photos of me that have been taken during meditation with big blue lights coming through my head. And it feels like rain. So that's why I know even rain is a portal. And so when I travel up, and you asked me, where do I frequent quite a lot? I tend to travel to Egypt a lot when I've got a fellow healer in front of me. And so when I travel to Egypt, I have seen myself in spaces where there are codes that are beginning to activate that the client or myself needs now. I went to a lifetime in Egypt recently for a client where I arrived there and she was a healer, and it was a room with sacred geometry. And I didn't know this woman, and so this lady, I can't remember where she was calling me from, but it definitely wasn't New Zealand. She was across somewhere other side of the world. And so I was telling her, I said to her, look, I'm in this room, there's sacred geometry, I'm in Egypt. And I said, you drew the sacred geometry. I said, your soul knows how to do that. And she's silently listening to me. And I said, but what I'm doing now is all the sacred geometry is coming to life. It's being integrated into your body now. And then I did my thing to bring it into her body. And I said to her, you used to do this at night, but during the day, you were preserving all the artifacts at the time for the royal families. And she said, okay. So I said, does this mean anything to you, like on a conscious level as you? And she said, Gaia, she said, 25 years ago, I had a dream. And in that dream, a male spirit guide told me that I knew how to draw sacred geometry. And she said, guess what I do now? I said, what? She said, I'm a curator at a museum. So then I said to her, okay, when do you turn 65? And she said, I think it was 3 months ago. She said, I'm 64 now. And then Spirit said to me, she needed to see you at 64 because at 65, this is when it's all going to come together. Now, I know you are young. I tell myself I'm getting younger every day, but there is no age when it comes to the soul perspective. People are stepping into their gifts, 50s, 60s, 70s. We've got people in their 80s waiting to see me too. And I just find that so incredible that people have shifted their ego aside to know that they're coming to a woman that may be chronologically younger, but is able to tap into these different realms to activate and start them on their remembrance journey, because it's not going to just stop when their physical body expires. Because I have seen and I know that life in Egypt for that lady may have been happening thousands of years ago, but it's also happening now because there is no time. So the way I describe it to clients is when I work on a person, you and I are talking to each other on our laptops. Inside of us, that light, that's the software, like how we get upgrades from our providers, at Apple or Play Store or whatever. When that frequency is upgraded, we're moving out all those outdated systems within you and upgrading you to the frequency of that remembrance. So when I have traveled to places like Egypt for that particular client, for her, it may have been 25 years that she had that dream, knowing that she was going to step into this somehow. But it took for me to be able to go in there and go, without hearing her speak or knowing anything, that you need to remember this. And the age makes a difference, like 33, 41 for me, for her 65. There's a specific alignment that happens. So people look at age as a negative thing. For me, I'm like, oh, what's going to awaken at this age?
They're portals as well.
They're portals. The numbers are portals. And it's like people are so fixed on aging and getting older, when I just think this is an opportunity for me to awaken even more, because there is no age. There is nothing but wisdom, and like you say, those portals opening up for us to jump through them. But it's really important, Emilio, that if you're going to be doing this yourself, like going through flames or going through the rain or going through, if you're able to see portals opening up, you have to return and come back, because we do have these vessels for a reason, and we do need to remain grounded. I had this client once, and I told her years before she had an awakening, I said, Spirit's telling me that you are going to have an awakening at, I think it was 52 for her. And she was at that time in her late 40s. And I said to her, but they're warning me that you must come back down and live your life. Otherwise, you will go psychotic, because there's a really fine line between psychotic and psychic. And this is why we all have to remain very, very grounded. And she didn't listen to me. She didn't listen to me. And now she's highly, highly medicated, because her children had to come back to me and say, my mum just stayed up there and we've lost her. So people often will see, like I see my gift as a really sacred thing. Like when I see people one-on-one, I don't allow them to record anything, because it's something that needs to be done there in the moment. Like even in my culture, there are rituals that are done very privately so that everything is kept sacred. And what happens is that when we start to go into these realms, it becomes a serious thing. It's not a game. We need to know how to come back to ourselves so that we can have our human experience also. So it's really important for those who are seeking out mediums and healers, that when you go through the portals and start accessing things, you need to come back and just know that it's living in those worlds of dancing between the human experience, but using the soul perspective to understand the human experience. But that was a long thing to have to tell you, but Egypt is somewhere that I frequently go when I've got a fellow healer in front of me, because there's so much ancient knowledge that is needed now at this time of chaos, at this time of disruption, at this time where mental health is at its peak. It's like we awaken that knowledge, we can see our human experience through that soul perspective and begin to move with grace. And even going through next year, we're going to need that grace to be able to handle all the things that will be coming our way in our individual lives, but also as the collective.
I'm very curious, Gaia, is this the first time that we have met in all our other lifetimes, or where else have we met in
I actually feel like you've been my son before, but not a son through blood, a son that I've adopted. And I feel because, you've had a lot of monastic lives where you have lived in isolation. And I feel like you've met me at a time where I have been in a position to be able to take you on as my child, as a mentor. But as I say, all my clients that I see, they're also teachers for me. I've learned from them. It's not like, oh, I'm on my high horse and I know everything. Your wisdom has taught me. And it's that Krishna energy. And I think this is why I've seen it so recently before coming to see you, is because Krishna's got this playfulness, and that comes also from youth, because usually baby Krishna is also a deity that people pray to, and he's with his flute and nothing phases Krishna. And you've got that about you, and I feel like that's what you've taught me, is that childlike curiosity to learn. And I feel like when we've met each other, it's actually been in Rome where we've met each other. I've actually not been to Rome before, not physically anyway, but I feel like we've met each other there. And so now you're giving me the opportunity to share what I have learned through spirit and through my clients with my son that gave me the opportunity to be a father when I didn't have a child of my own.
So interesting. When did you start picking up that information?
before I came on with you, I was thinking, why, Spirit, do you want me to go and speak with Emilio? It was then, but it's also now that I'm seeing it when I speak. Because it's interesting for me, when I start working with a client, the only preparation I do is self-preparation. So that will be fasting, meditating, all my rituals, all my prayers to be protected. But there is no other practical. I don't know anything but that person's name. I let everything come through me at the time. And that's what's happening now. I bet you when I finish recording this with you, I will have forgotten what his, because I feel very in that state of blur is what I call it. I always tell clients, 70% of Gaia moves aside. Gaia is a good communicator because that's just my natural personality. 30% of her remains to be able to articulate that. But I just feel like you have that energy of the sun, which is really important because you are the one that carries the legacy for so many people, and the legacy that you're leaving behind, because every imprint that you make with us, it's reflected on you. You're giving us the space. And I just feel like there's a lot of information around legacy that's coming through in terms of what we're leaving behind for humanity as we move on to different realms, as our body expires and passes on. And I just think that on a soul level with you, you as a healer, you as a teacher, you as a holder of light, which are different soul levels that my spirit guides have given me in order to understand the type of individual that I've got in front of me. I just feel like many people are coming forward with different degrees of those soul levels, because not everyone in the world is meant to see thousands of people. My hairdresser, for example, is a healer. I'll sit in her chair and she'll say to me, "I feel you today, Gaia." And I'm like, "I know you do." And we're all doing it in our own way. But you are the sun for many. You are the legacy that is going to be left for everyone that comes your way, including yourself. And you've got so much more life to live. And I just see you, holding retreats and holding more space face to face with people that will come in later. And I think we're all needing to figure out how we're meant to serve now. And ego remains. We all have it. I have it too. But I do notice with me, it gets less and less the more and more I do this work, the more that I experience and see physical death happen. I'm like, why are we holding on to this ego for what? There's nothing to prove anymore. And so when clients come to me, I've got nothing to prove. So if you drop your ego, the session's going to be amazing, because you're just going to let them come through me and do whatever I do. Because we are a reflection of everything. And I know that with me because I change every time I have a different client. So I may have one person and then my personality completely changes with the next person, and they may not like it, but it's a part of them that they need to see in that mirror reflection of me. So with you, I think you bring out that ability for people to be able to truly share, because your ego is pushed aside in order for you to learn like the diligent son, but also to hold that legacy for us and for yourself. So I just think with you, like with what you're doing and what you're creating and where you're at on your spiritual journey, there will be so much more, and all the people that will be finding you later. Yeah, it's going to be, I never do any research on whoever I'm talking about, because I like to just naturally see how I feel and all of that. But all the things that you will be working on, I just see you leaving behind when it's your time, which is going to be a long, 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 long time away, leaving behind a big platform in so many ways for people to use that as their leverage to grow even more. So the work that you're doing is really important, but it comes from being that disciplined son, that student that's there to learn. So no, we've met each other many times before, but that's the one that they're asking me to activate now, because right now in your career, people are teaching you, but actually that's going to change quite soon. Don't you feel that?
I do. I mean, it really struck a chord with me when you were talking about like certain age points in our life. I feel like 21 was a big year, which is when this podcast sort of the idea started percolating. And then finally 22, when I launched it, I just turned 26, as you said. So I'm feeling there is another cycle coming very soon. You know, the astrologers might call it the Saturn return that'll come in a few years. But yeah, it's so interesting about the time periods that open up portals for us in our life.
The time periods are really important, and that's why we can't accelerate that. We just have to live our lives and trust, because it's, I always get people like, I need to do this now. How do I turn what I do into something bigger and more? If it's meant for you, it'll go that way naturally, because I just hand it over. Wherever you want me to go, whatever you want me to embody, that is what I'm going to do. And I feel like those of us that are on this journey teaching in some form, we need to be able to just surrender, because without that consciousness, we don't know anything. It's not me. It's what embodies me to be able to pass it on. It's just that I'm able to put the puzzle pieces together to make sense of what an individual needs to be looking at now. Some of the stories that I've seen from clients, there's a lot of addiction stuff that is coming up at the moment, Emilio. And, I had this client come and see me recently, and I could see her in a lifetime before, where when I see the energy of an addict, and this could be addiction to anything: food, money, control, power, alcohol, sex, seeing a lot of sexual trauma addiction also that's coming in. And when this client came to see me, I could see her in lifetimes before, where she was overindulging and being force-fed, and then she carried on doing that. And she didn't want to do it, but she had no control. Now, the person that I had in front of me, you couldn't see if this person was fit, build, all of that. So I'm saying all this, and I said, you carry the energy of the addict. And I said, in past lives, or also current life, because it's still happening just in another realm, you've been an addict. And I'm saying all this to her, and I said, but the issue is that you have such low self-worth that you never end up meeting a partner. You just end up single. So I said, when are you 34? And she said, soon. I said, okay. So I said, are you 33 now? She said, yes, I am. And I said, have you ever had any type of eating disorder or food disorder? And she said, it's been my battle my whole life. And I said, okay. And I said, you're single now? Because I can feel in the heart space if someone's single or not. And she said, I am. And what's being shown to us, Emilio, and through me, is that everything is connected. So, for example, that addiction energy, if that's not healed, because everything is coming to such a head now, where spirit is wanting us to address things immediately, because if we don't, it's all going to come to a crashing halt, where we're going to be forced to deal with things. It's like if she wants to meet a partner and have the love that she deserves and desires, this issue needs to be dealt with first. And I'm seeing this a lot. When I first started doing this work, people could get away with having a successful career and perhaps being in an unhealthy relationship or not in alignment with their relationship energy. What I mean by that is sometimes people would desire a relationship, but within the body, I'm unworthy, I'm protected, don't come near me. That needs to shift in order to be aligned. People could get away with it 8-9 years ago when I started doing this work. Now, spirit's going, can't have one without the other. This needs to be addressed for this to work out, because it's that interconnection that's happening. And I call this part the light synapses. So you use the word transmission. That transmitter is going from one area of your life to the other area of your life. So you do need to address what's going on. If you're happily single, and which I will say controversially, even when I get a client says to me, I don't want anybody, I'm like, that's not the truth of what your soul's telling me. It's your experiences, because you've been abused or you've been taken advantage of or whatever, that is actually getting you to say those things. But the true essence is that you are love and you want to be loved. So I think it's really important, because, I want your listeners and viewers to be empowered with this information, to know that you can start drawing these connections yourself. and use those portals at the ages that you are. Feel into it, because you will know. Like you said, 21 is when you had the download to start this podcast. 22 is when you actually started it. Now you're 26. It's a turning point for you. And then when you're 28, there's going to be something now, another door that's going to be opening for you, that's preparing you now. And that 28, I think, is going to be important. I think you're actually going to follow a very traditional, what I call traditional because it's my day-to-day work. 28 will be another one, and then 33 will be another one for you, and then 41, you'll go in that more traditional, which is what I call traditional because I'm in that cycle, the same cycle. And I think we can all do that in our own lives and see, okay, what age am I at? What is the opportunity here? What is the connection? Why is this part of my life working and this part not? Because that's where you've got to look and heal that particular aspect.
I've also heard you mention that the souls that are coming into the planet right now know exactly what they're coming in for. And it's almost like this. And Dolores Cannon, another teacher, she's passed, but she talked about it. She did past life regressions as well. And she would talk about these waves of volunteers that would come onto the planet, allowing us to accelerate in our evolution. What have you felt into in regards with the next generations or the children that are coming into the planet right now?
So this is part of my job that I absolutely love. And this brings me to another story, because I think a lot of your listeners either will be experiencing this, because it's a very common thing that people don't talk about, which is miscarriage and losing children. And I have this client, and I actually remember her because I saw her a number of times to support her on this journey. And the first time I saw her, I didn't know that she was coming to me about babies, but I had information to tell her that she would have 6 miscarriages before she actually got a baby, and over a period of a number of sessions. So what I do is soul progression, and how it's different from past life regression is that I don't hypnotize or put my client in a trance-like state. I get into that and access the lifetimes almost immediately. And when I travel to different lifetimes for this particular client, I could see that she had 7 souls of children around her. 6 of them sometimes did not make it. And so the information was that you get your baby, but you will have to have 6 miscarriages, because the souls that are coming through need to have their own experience before one is ready to come into the physical world. And what happened, Emilio, is she emailed my assistant, I think a few months ago, and said, please tell Gaia that the information she received was right. I got to take my 7th baby home. So how this is a segue into what you are asking me is that when I have a client that has a child in utero or is going to conceive, that soul will communicate to me often a name that they want to be named, or at least an initial. They will tell me what they're coming in for and why they've chosen a parent. And what I've seen is that there are a lot of hybrid children going to come in. Now, Emilio, extraterrestrials is something that I don't know naturally much about. It's only through this work in the last year that I have been seeing extraterrestrials coming in for clients, that I've been feeling them around me. And I feel like the beings that are coming in have already the sense of past, present, and future. Therefore, they're coming in with the knowledge that we're all having to figure out to be able to accelerate the frequencies to keep up with the changes that are happening universally. Because Mother Earth is going to be absolutely fine. It's how we're treating each other. It's what's happening universally, because, the universe is constantly expanding. And I know this because every day that I work, the frequency changes. So whoever gets me on that day, I'll be like, right, this is the frequency that we're working in for your healing today. But from what I've seen and the way how articulate and pure these souls are that are coming in, they know whether they want to be miscarried and come in and test the waters first, whether the vessel is ready for handling the wisdom that they're going to come in with, or are they needing more connection? Because through loss, perceived loss, because whether we like it or not, the emotions and the hormones affect a person when there is a physical loss within the body, especially if it's a woman carrying a child. But what happens is that these souls are coming in with the information when they communicate with me as to why they're being miscarried. So for this person, I could tell her the genders of the child and what they were trying to learn. And it's because the space that is being held needs to be so pure to hold that knowledge and wisdom that that child is coming in with. We've all had to struggle a little bit to figure it out. These beings are coming in knowing exactly what type of healing they want to be and how they want to be doing it. And it may not be in this shamanic type of sense. It could be in some other way. But they're coming in with this extraterrestrial knowledge of the future, of what's going to, the synapses that's going to take us from now to then. And that's another thing I want to share also. You know, when spirit simplifies everything for me, because in layman's terms, because we want everyone to understand it. It's not just for highly spiritual beings that only have certain terminologies. People have always focused on how and when. Those are the worst questions to ask a medium. How is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? Because timing is changing all the time, because there is no time, because that's why I can access lifetimes that you've lived but are still existing in another realm until you've learned that lesson and we've transmuted the energy and you've made a commitment to change that outcome. But we need to be looking at what's happening now and what happened then in order to form that synapses of connection to be able to transform and change. So the babies, the souls that are coming in, you know, people, my friend said to me the other night, she said, you know, we think these babies are just goo goo gaga. They come in and they don't know anything, but they know a lot. And the way that they communicate so purely and clearly, it's like they're coming in and keeping that remembrance to be used to help their parents, whoever they've come through, and also humanity. It's not going to be, they're not going to need help remembering. They're going to be helping those of us that are lagging behind to remember. And I think there's a lot of souls that are coming in. There's going to be, because there's been such a mass exodus of souls, they're sending the new, very highly evolved beings that have the extraterrestrial wisdom and knowledge to be able to push humanity forward even more in that graceful way.
And you mentioned how that extraterrestrial knowledge in a way is coming from the future. So what are you sensing into regarding what about the future are these children going to be bridging for us? Is it technology? Is it new systems in the world? Education? What type of things are they bringing in from the future?
I had this client, and I think it was a male, and he was chronologically quite mature. I think he was in his 70s. And there was a boyish charm about him, almost like a sun energy again. And I said to him, you know, I've time traveled. I think I was in Greece, a lifetime in Greece. And I said, you had this wife, and she would get frustrated with you because you would stand outside and you were communicating with extraterrestrials. I said, you have the ability to do that because I've got them here in front of me and they want me to transmit their frequency into you so that you remember how to communicate with them. And he looked at me and he said, my wife left me because I started getting so obsessed with extraterrestrials. And I said, okay. So I said, well,
he was going in the YouTube rabbit hole too much.
He's like, I've joined every group and I started to get so obsessed. And I was like, okay, well, we'll work on that in a minute. Work on the relationship stuff in a minute. But let's look at the extraterrestrials. And it's so funny you asking me this question, like, what are they going to bring in for the future? I was tuning into a little bit of like the rest of the year and next year. And it's funny because it's going to be like, and forward, this push and pull between the old and the new. Because as we know, we want to simplify life in a certain way, but we also want to advance as well. So I feel like the extraterrestrials, they're so, like, I know this sounds strange, but it is what it is. Because I have such a rare blood type, I do actually feel them taking my blood sometimes. And it's the most bizarre thing. I'll literally be having lunch sometimes and I'll be like, oh, they're here taking my blood. And it's because I'll be unwell or something at the time. And I'm like, and I know that they're there. And I literally will feel the jab in my arm and I'll be like, oh, here we go.
To do like experiments or
experiments. And it's of benevolent nature. It's not anything bad. So I'm like, here we go. Even though I don't really want this to be happening right now, they're doing this. But it's the experimentation is happening without, I mean, I know some people will be conscious of it because they have the ability to communicate with aliens and they've had experiences with aliens. But the knowledge that they're going to be bringing in is, yes, technological advancements, but it's also going to be more in a balanced way. It's not, I know that AI and all these things are, on our heels and there's going to be the shadow sides of that. But I feel like they're going to come in at a time where it's going to save us from going too overboard. So therefore, I actually have no fear about what's being developed technologically, because I do know that there are going to be new beings coming in that are going to balance out the technology for what we really need and not necessarily going to take over everything to the point where we have no say or empowerment for ourselves. So all areas, technology, I think education, the medical system, the medical system and the intuitive medical system. Like I have a number of doctors that send patients to me because I can see the blockages in the body. And often clients will come back and say, I don't know what you did, but I haven't been able to get pregnant in 10 years and I got pregnant the week I saw you. Or, and I say to them, look, it's not me. It's just what's happening through me and my healing symbols. It's because you're allowing me to clear that out. I feel like medicine and intuition and technology will all be merging. And I feel like the extraterrestrials have that knowledge to be able to know how to do that, which they'll come in with that innate knowledge that we may not necessarily have readily available inside of us right now. So I think that when they come through, and I'm seeing, it's not very often that I see a hybrid. I think I've seen thousands of people over the years. I've only seen a couple of hybrids where I just knew immediately, like, this person is not of this world. I'm traveling to some other dimensions, and
because of the physical attributes that you see, or you're reading into
physical
the energy
attributes, and also they just have a different frequency. They have a different frequency that is not human. It's really hard for me to explain. It's almost like, I know this is probably not the right word, but there's a neutralness about them. Whereas I'm full of emotion and I'm emotive in the way that I talk, and that's just me, my personality. But there's this essence of them that I can feel that is almost black and white in some way. But I know that for the future, probably when I'm in my 70s and 80s, I'll be seeing the new ones that are being born now that already have that will be teaching me something as well, that have been born with that. So it's becoming more, these babies are coming in knowing exactly what they're wanting to do, and not going to be floundering around so much like how many of us had to get to step into what we're meant to be doing and into our purpose. Because I get that a lot, Emilio. What am I meant to be doing? I'm not feeling fulfilled in the job that I have. The time is now to really look at the possibilities that you have. Start entering portals naturally through your meditation, coming back into your body and embracing who you are. And if you are someone that's going to be carrying a child, know that miscarriages and perceived losses, and I say perceived losses because we're looking through the soul perspective, is actually the initiation that you need to be able to hold that child. And children are coming in lots of different ways. There are surrogates, there are sperm donors, there are egg donors. It's like everything is merging with science to create something that is naturally occurring. And that's what I see in terms of how extraterrestrials will be bringing everything together for the future in order to push us forward, to have a balanced push and pull between the old and the new.
It's almost like the internet, and also now the emergence of artificial intelligence, is in itself a portal. We talked about how nature can be a portal as well. But, when I'm looking at people in my generation, previous generations may have been told there's limited options that you could do with your career. You could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be an engineer, you could be a teacher. And now a lot of the people that I'm surrounding myself with, I'm like, so like, what do you have going on next month? They're like, no, like I'm going to go travel remotely in Bali for a little bit. And then, they're doing so many different things through the internet that is allowing them to step into whatever they're passionate about. Like I wouldn't have been able to do this work if it wasn't for the medium of the internet that's allowing us to, you're in New Zealand, I'm in Colombia, we're having conversation across the world. So I'm really optimistic about the internet, AI especially. I know a lot of people may have fear around it, but I feel like it's just the consciousness that we embed it with that
Correct.
will determine where it goes and how we work with it, our relationship to it as well. You said that you were also feeling into the energies of what's going on in the rest of the year. What else are you picking up around that?
It's really interesting because I set these lessons every week for my clients. I call them Monday mantras, and I look from a soul progression point of view because I just find that, I've picked up lots of things naturally in terms of spirit showing me things that are going to be happening in the Middle East for next year and all of that sort of stuff. But I always focus on what we can do, because if we are progressing, that reverberates to the rest of the world anyway. And I've made some notes of words because I always tune into the words as I go along. And, we've been seeing a lot of, and I've been seeing this not just in the world, but personally and with clients. It's coming back to this place of loyalty. And I'm talking about, there's a lot of familial issues, meaning issues in the family coming up, because that's what we can sort of focus on because it's our immediate connections that we have. And this is why I say people can empower themselves by looking at what they've immediately got in front of them to be able to heal these issues. Like, I went through the year, and I know we want to talk about the rest of the year, but this is why Spirit says always look at what's happened then and then what's happening now, because it helps us to form that trajectory. And from April, I started picking up that there was going to be this loyalty stuff coming up. There was going to be betrayals being evident, to people having to see who people really are. And then I saw from April onwards that we're going to have to stand up for ourselves in a way that requires us to be in our power. And from the middle of the year, which is roughly now, even though we're, heading towards the last 6 months, we might be experiencing a sense of losses. And this could be in the form of physical death. But I feel like many people are having these mini spiritual awakenings in order for them to be able to use grief as an ability to live more. Because we always find that towards the end of the year, and I know this is hard for people to hear, but when we're looking from the soul perspective, we know that this is a cycle of life. Spirit had told me there are going to be cycles breaking towards December where there's going to be another exodus of souls leaving. But we're meant to use that as a sacred portal for us to be able to shed the old. When I work with people, Emilio, when I see someone that's lost someone, they can often become very shut down, and grief has plugged them up in a way that they're not able to receive or see the soul perspective anymore. So we know globally, politically, I'm not very politically inclined naturally, but we're being asked to hold our ground and be who we are in our truth. we're being asked to use that chaos in order to reward ourselves. And I know that's a funny link, a funny synapsis there, but I've noticed with that Krishna energy, I recently went to India. And the week before I went to India, I've been to India a few times, but not to the places I went. And this relates to the energy for the last bit of the year. Spirit had said to me, everybody needs to take in the energy of honey. And I was thinking, what's that got to do with anything? And so when I was talking on my Monday mantra lesson, I gave everyone the energy of honey. Then I showed up in Amritsar in Punjab. And I was on a tour. It was just me and a tour guide. And the guide took me to the Golden Temple. And I never, like I say, I never do any research. I just go and learn what I'm meant to learn. And he starts talking. And this is a few days after I'd been given the initiation of the energy of honey. And he said to me, people come here to be initiated into the nectar of life, the honey. And I said, okay. I said, so that's why I received that information. And I feel like the healing energy to restore any sense of loss is coming in at this end of this year. Sure, there's going to be all the things that are going on around us, but we have to empower ourselves to grow, to have that self-belief within us. And I know that around November, there will be this optimal spiritual growth, and we need to utilize that energy. So those of us who are on this healing journey, stepping into our healing abilities, now is the time, because going into 2025, it's like this energy of being scattered is going to be trying to be pulling us in so many different directions. But it's that grace that's needed to be in that flow. So I feel like belief systems within ourselves have this opportunity to be restored and changed over this last part of 2024. Because when I was tuning in at the beginning of the year, this year was about infinite possibilities. It was about being productive and knowing what you want, making conscious choices. But as we know in life, things pull us off into different directions. So your plan now going into this last part of the year is, how are you going to serve yourself? How are you going to serve your family? How are you going to step into your healing gifts, whatever that means to you? And knowing that there will be a death and rebirth cycle, but that is actually going to serve you in terms of your power being revealed. So for me, I'm looking at the optimistic side of the last 6 months, because we know this last few months have had bizarre happenings in the world. But when we bring that back and apply it to our lives, how I've looked at things is that all the old things are falling away. Even people that have been in our lives for a long time, they're showing their true colors. And I feel that this year has been a really revealing year where we've got all that information of who is truly on our side and on our team to help amplify who we are. And we grow from that, because when we utilize that energy, we're bringing and attracting more of the same to us. And that's not the same perspective. I think it's important that we all have different perspectives, but we're not in that energy of competition anymore, or envy or jealousy. And I feel like all those old paradigms are starting to break away over this next 6 months, but we're going to be seeing it amplified globally, which is going to teach us that we need to do things differently over this next bit of the year before we go into the new year. Because we know that even though there is no time, the months are going by quickly, but that's because of the pressure that we put on ourselves. So there is urgency for this next 6 months to heal these big issues of, I see a number of people that stay in relationships that are disloyal, and their power is taken away from them. And we can see that in political situations where people are leaving or people are showing their true colors so that the new can come in. And the new may not be everything that we agree with, but we can create that leadership in our own lives. So it's really about leading ourselves over the next 6 months. So I feel like end of 2024, there's this opportunity to see from our heart space, take on these frequencies that are coming in from the universe, from the extraterrestrial beings, There's this amplification of us stepping into our healing abilities and really hearing our inner calling, entering the portals, whether it's through meditation and trusting what you see and feel, but coming back to use that upgrade in your life. And I think that's really going to be vital information to back ourselves, because the ego will say, oh, I don't know if I know enough. A lot of people are like, I don't know whether I'm equipped enough to help people. We all are in our own ways. And I want everyone to be united in that we all have this ability. We all have a gift that needs to be shared. And this next 6 months is restoring that sense of self, even though there may be some losses that will shake things up, but there is reward from that.
You've also said that September is going to bring experiences that are going to make us believe in love again. So what are we going to be learning about love this year?
Relationships is one of the biggest things I see. You know, people naturally will want to know about that, but because I don't allow my clients to speak when they come online, I will naturally see, I will look, when I go into a lifetime before, I will look to see what kind of relationship a client has had. And I feel like in September, people have, and I'm speaking from the people that I've seen, from my experiences, in relationships, there are ebbs and flows. And this is not just relationships with an intimate lover, because we've all been experienced in some way. We thought someone was one way, but actually there was an underlying maliciousness or an underlying betrayal. And this was starting to come up around, like, you know, for April, it was almost like a reevaluation of everything for us to figure out who we are on our own and coming back to that place of loyalty. And for me, during that month, I experienced a huge betrayal with someone that was a friend for a long time that tried to destroy everything. But I feel like it's September, it's almost like that space that has been created from any disloyalty that we've experienced in this lifetime or lifetimes before. Even if we're consciously not aware, there could be a realm, a dimension that is still holding energy of a betrayal. In September, I do feel like there's this opportunity for us to regain that trust again and to be seen for who we really are. So if we're healing that part of us that has been hurt, that has been betrayed, that feels like that we're unworthy, September holds an opportunity for us to either reignite relationships or meet someone new. You might even want to put yourself out there a little bit more in September to be able to find a person that's going to complement you. And I think that's what we're all looking for, is, like I said to you, it's not about all of us being the same. It's all of us complementing one another. So if September, I just feel like belief is going to be restored. There's going to be experiences coming our way that may be of a romantic nature or one that is loving intention, loving intent. We all want to be loved, Emilio, no matter what. Like I said to you, if I see clients and they're like, no, I don't want a relationship, like, you're not telling me the truth, because I can hear your soul speaking to me, and that's not the truth. It's just because you've been hurt. So I feel like being open and receptive to love, because love is the key to everything. Like, you know, I'm a human being too. I'm a Scorpio. I've got natural fire inside of me. And sometimes when things happen in my life where someone hurts me because I am such a loyal person, my personality will want to go, I could say something or do something vindictive, but then I have to come back from the soul perspective. And you actually receive so much more when you are in that loving space, or when you communicate not in an accusatory tone, but in a way of curiosity, like, why has it happened that way? So I feel like for September, there is this energy that is extending to romantic connections happening, relationships with people that you're wanting to build that with is coming in. Because as we move into October, I've put here unveiled mysteries. And I feel like November will be a time where there's probably globally there will be things coming up that people will be discovering new things that we haven't heard about and or are learning about. So I feel like we'll be getting a lot of information from people who are onto the research and who are looking for these things. But how I apply it in my life is that I'll probably be going into October going, what am I going to learn? Because, I've been in a relationship for a long time now. Well, you learn about each other even more. And I feel like spirit will be tapping into us a lot more in November too, giving us more information about the new frequencies and the mystery around that. So I'm excited towards the end of the year. Yes, there'll be things going on that are challenging, but it's a sacred time, sacred bond, sacred relationship, sacred information, sacred mysteries. And I think we will be able to honor that and utilize it for the well-being of ourselves, the well-being of Earth, and well-being of other people around us.
And apart from being your birthday in November, also we will know if there is a new U.S. president, and I almost never get political on this show. So the elections will take place on the 5th of November. I just fact checked real quick. So it's so interesting that you mentioned October, about that there will be secrets revealed, almost like mysteries of the world, but maybe that could also extend out into the political landscape, and that could maybe shift some of the decision making that U.S. citizens will take with their vote, whether they will vote, all these different things unfolding.
100%. I mean, I'm like you. Politics is something that my brain doesn't even compute really, but that's why. But yes, you've drawn that connection. Absolutely. There will be information given to us at that time that's going to help us decide, like things that have been confusing or a mystery will be coming up. And I think that it'll be a fascinating month. And I encourage everybody to look with curiosity. Be naive. Like if you go and see a healer or a medium, just be so open and just be like, to move your ego out the side. And as you go into these months of how is love going to present itself to me? What loving gestures can I do for the people in my life? You do what you can control and let spirit deliver to you, because those waiting for information or waiting for an awakening, the Krishna consciousness energy, I didn't know it was his birthday. I didn't know he was going to come to me that day when I'm just innocently on my beach walk trying to get some fresh air. That's how it comes. It's when you're just like a child going, oh, I'm seeing the ocean for the first time, and I'm seeing what the energy is for the first time. But I know that we've had, all of us in our own personal lives and just what's been happening around me, a lot of disruption, but it's all coming in for a reason, because it will make sense. Like for me, when I look back and I think, gosh, I was in so much pain in that month because this was happening. And now I look back and go, I understand how that disruption has caused so much closeness and brought in closeness into my life, brought in opportunity. Spirit is teaching us also as practitioners. They're giving us the lessons that we need, because those are the types of people that are going to be coming to us to receive guidance and to receive the lesson. So it's been a huge initiation process for all of us that are consciously aware of the experiences happening for us rather than to us. And I just think that, November, you're absolutely right. It is the election time. So mysteries will be unveiled for sure in so many ways. But I'm excited not about politics as such, but what that means for us individually and how we can share that with other people.
Yeah, I love how you brought up do what you can control, because if we start putting all our attention on the outer world, we're siphoning our energy outside of us, where then we'll start feeling like, oh, we're powerless to change in our life, and we can't make these changes because all our attention is going out to something else instead of bringing it in, seeing what we could do in the moment.
That's right.
Gaia, this has been a beautiful part one conversation. I feel like we just scratched the surface on the work that is unfolding through you. And I wanted to send people to connect with you even further. Where would you send people to connect? I know you work a lot on one-on-one clients. You're very booked out, but where would you send people to work with you even further?
Okay, so the best place to go would be my website, soul33.com. But I have an app, Emilio, and I've made that really affordable for everybody so that they can receive my weekly teachings and the frequencies that I put out there, because it just makes me accessible to everybody. So if you go to your Play Store or App Store and just search Soul33, SOUL, and the numerals 33, you can download the app. But if you just go to the website, all that information is there anyway. And, we all have the power to tap in, as you know, and that's what you've called your podcast. I'm here to help you remember, but you've got that power within yourself, and it's not going to require people to intellectualize it. Just trust that we're all being guided, that without the consciousness, we couldn't be who we are. But yeah, there are platforms to communicate with me or be on a wait list to receive my healing. But the app is the best place. But I just want to let everyone know that you have the power within you to discover your gifts. It's just sometimes we need someone to help us remember.
That segues so perfectly in, because we end every show with a segment called the Final Trio, which are just short little questions that we ask at the end. The first two are personalized to the guest, and the last one we ask at the end of every show. The first one ties in directly with what you just said about our true power, and that is, what is the greatest action that an individual can take for themselves to prepare to step into their true power?
An action that you can take is to understand your situation and what you're working from now. I think we live in a life where we're looking too far into what we want, and without understanding the now, it's really hard. And the action that you can take is by taking a moment, sitting down and writing down, this is what I've got to work with, because I've got lots of clients who are in situations where they just don't know what they have to work with. We all have our assets. We all have our potential, our unique qualities. Work from what you've got. Actually be really clear on what you have now in order for you to step forward. And if you're wanting to do something, don't just think about it. If you have the means, and even if you don't, the path will be cleared if you just intend that. And I know that sounds very, etheric, but it's true. If you know that you're meant to be doing something, now is the time to step forward and sign up for the course or start the podcast or see a client or whatever. But you have to understand what you're working with now first. Like I know, and as you will probably know, all of my gifts and all of the things that I have to offer, my qualities. And I use all of those to my advantage because I know those are qualities given to me by my spirit guides, by God. And I feel like that is where everybody can start. Take your pen to paper. And I think pen to paper is really important over typing it out, because you can see what you're working with in front of you with your own energy. And look at what you've got now, make a decision and move forward to back yourself.
Beautiful. The second question I have for you is, what is the most powerful teaching that you have ever received from your own spirit team or your spirit guides?
There's so many, Emilio, when it comes to the most powerful teaching. I just feel like they give me lessons every day through my clients. And the biggest one is that we're all so alike with each other, even though we've got our differentiating characteristics, that we're so deeply connected to one another in terms of the emotions that we feel, that there is no need for anybody to feel better than one another, because at the end of the day, our physical body is going to expire. The light will move on to somewhere else with all that knowledge and wisdom that we've hopefully understood. And I feel like the biggest teaching that they give me every day is that we're always supported, that there is an infinite amount of abundance. Like I always tell myself that I live in excess and in abundance. And I'm not talking about financially. I'm just talking about I live in excess and in abundance with everything. And they taught me that. They're like, you don't need to subscribe to the paradigms that are going on outside. You create your own world. And I live a wonderful, magical life with things like everybody else going on in their lives. But we have the opportunity to speak to our spirit guides and get that support that we need. So even if we're feeling alone, we know that we have that support readily available to us, and that we're all connected to one another and all have similarities. We're all going through the same things. So I just feel like they teach me that in different ways every single day, that we can live in excess and in abundance of love and all of that we wish, that we do not need to be looking at other people on how to attain that or wanting to be someone else, because we're the same. We're the same. We're all in the same boat.
Thank you. The final question we ask at the show is called the time capsule question, and it requires us to time travel out around 15 to 20 years into the future. And I picked out those time frames because I feel that is going to be a time when the next generation of leaders, so the younger generations of today, are going to be stepping into leadership positions around the world, whether that be, as we talked about, education, medicine, technology, whatever it is. They're going to be stepping into that role for themselves of leading and taking, in a way, the baton for humanity forward. Also getting supported by the elder generations that left behind the wisdom and the knowledge that they accrued in their life. So you had the opportunity to leave behind a time capsule for these young leaders that when they get to that point and are mature enough, will be ready to lead. And whatever you include in this time capsule, these leaders will open, and it'll be exactly the tools, the teachings, the frequency needed for them to equip themselves to be able to lead in the best way possible into the new earth that we are all co-creating. What would you leave behind in the time capsule? It can be anything that you can imagine. It doesn't have to be physical. It could be an energy. It could be a book. It could be anything that your mind can conceive, but knowing that they will open this and be empowered with whatever you left in there for their future.
And again, this comes back to the legacy of things, isn't it? Which is what I was talking to you about. And I think if I, Gaia, was leaving a legacy for the future generations coming in, is that I'd leave an energy of being able to see people for who they really are. And I feel like that is such an important quality that everybody needs, because many people live from that perspective of being a victim or wanting to control or be in the power position. But how you truly win, how you truly connect with people, is seeing someone for who they really are. And that is looking at someone and knowing the essence of them beyond their pain, beyond their suffering, beyond their experiences. Like sometimes clients will say to me, like, is my mother in spirit a nice person? I'm like, she's amazing. They're like, well, she wasn't in real life. And I was like, but that's because she's come back to I'm seeing her for who she really was. And I feel like I would leave that behind, because it's something that I have innately and within me when I work with people. That's why I'll just get straight in there and see what the issue is. And I would want that for everybody else, because it would eliminate so many issues. We wouldn't have to prove ourselves. We wouldn't need to defend ourselves. We wouldn't need to perform to be loved. We would just know who you were at a core. And that for me is what I would leave behind in a time capsule as the legacy, is for everybody to see beyond color, beyond race, beyond age, beyond whether they've had all this trauma in the world, beyond their addiction, and just see who they are. Because the more that we align ourselves to that frequency, the better quality experiences we'll all naturally have with what we're experiencing in life anyway. So that's what I'd leave behind in the time capsule.
That's some powerful stuff, Gaia. Thank you for being that person that when you activate your own gifts, you become an activator for the whole. And I feel that that is a quality that you embody as an activator of gifts and continuously being willing to be upgraded in your own gifts. So I love this time together with you. I feel like it will be the first conversation of many, first transmission of many. So sending all my love, and until next time, thank you so much, Gaia.
Thank you so much for having me, Emilio.
Of course.